All right, welcome to the first session on how to write perfect GCSE answer. Today we're going to go through one exam question and break it down into its different components. We're going to look at a 9 marker from urban issues and challenges, which is going to come up on your exam definitely. So, to what extent do SQUAT assessments in urban areas of lower income countries or newly emerging economies provide opportunities as well as challenges for people? Refer to evidence from a city that you've studied. 9-mark question. So the most important elements of this question are to what extent. So immediately we should be thinking it's an evaluation question, and we should be thinking we need to think of some pros and some cons of this question itself. SQUAT assessments is referring to specific low-income housing in developing countries. So they may also be known as favelas, or you might go to shanty towns in Africa. So make sure that before you start answering the question, you start annotating the SQUAT assessments part itself in the exam. Obviously, we need to focus on lower income countries as well as newly emerging economies. So you should be thinking about which countries that you've studied, and then annotate some examples, and then think of some opportunities and challenges. So just a few bullet points before you start answering the question itself. For this, we need to focus on what way has on what ways have they been managed well in terms of the settlements themselves, and then the way we're going to break that down is into two constituent parts. Now, you could focus on one case study if you wanted to, or you could focus on two, in which case you'd have to think about, are you going to talk about the opportunities in one and the challenges in the other, or are you going to talk about both the opportunities and challenges in both, which will be a bit more tricky to do for a 9-mark question. Okay, so my suggestion, especially if you're revising over this period of time, get this table down on your piece of paper in front of you, or maybe if you're going to be typing in the exam, you can draw out the table in Excel or our PowerPoint presentation, and then have these columns where you can write down, using your textbook or your notes that you've made in class, some examples of SQUAT assessments and what opportunities they're providing. So you may have studied Roshiniya in Rio de Janeiro or Dharavi in Mumbai. You can bullet point some examples down, write down some challenges as well as some opportunities as well. Now, the last column here is going to be very important because this is where you're going to do the evaluation part. So you can just write down, overall, I think that there were, to a large extent or to a small extent, more opportunities provided, and the reason for this was X, Y, or Z. And that could help form your conclusion as you are going along. So, any questions so far? So hopefully you've got that down. You can always take a screenshot of that and then crack on with it in your own time. Let's move on to the next bit. So we're going to look at some sample answers here. You've got SQUAT assessments usually have a high population. This would be good as you could improve their lifestyle, but use them as the workers, as they would be happy with the opportunity to live a better lifestyle. So this is an example of an answer that's been written. If you're writing like this, what do you think? What do you think is missing from this answer, or what are your thoughts about this as you read it? If you can let me know in the chat. Will this be a high, middle, or low grade answer in your opinion? Yeah, there's no example of a case study. Absolutely. Okay, so it's not mentioned any place. It's not actually mentioned any opportunities. It just says that it could improve their lifestyle, but doesn't define what lifestyle is. And it says workers would be happy because of a better lifestyle. So nothing has actually been said in this paragraph. So try to avoid writing like this. It happens very often in the exam. A lot of candidates, what they ended up doing is they just write what comes to their head as soon as they see the question, instead of reflecting on what they're going to write before they start writing it. Okay, so let's just refresh this and come back to this. Okay. Okay, so here's another sample answer. One challenge of Scottish settlements is crime. In Rio favelas, many have no police control and are ruled by gangs. This poses a risk to people there, e.g., murder and muggings, as well as the rest of the city, e.g., this poses a risk to people there, e.g., murder and muggings, as well as the rest of the city, e.g., drug and trafficking. Another challenge is access to amenities. In Rio, 50% of homes in favelas are not connected to sewage systems, and many don't have electricity or water. This reduces quality of life drastically. Okay, so this is a much better answer. First of all, the candidate has mentioned one challenge generically about crime and then refers to Rio de Janeiro's favelas. And it says that many people, well, the police can't control it, and there's a lot of gang culture in these areas. Also mentions and gives examples of murder and muggings, which is a development on the crime, specifying it and referring to drug trafficking as well. And it says 50% of homes and favelas are not connected to sewage systems. This is really good because the candidate is referring to specific statistics, and it's also saying that people don't have access to water or electricity. Now, what would make this even better is by saying 50% of homes in favelas are not connected to sewage systems, and therefore the spread of disease, such as X or Y, is causing long-term health problems. That would be a perfect top-level answer for this question. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Scottish settlements also create opportunities. Unemployment rates are extremely high in many of the favelas, which means many are looking for work and need money. Many industries take advantage of this, using cheap labour to become more profitable as a business. Rio has many thriving industries such as manufacturing, retail, and banking. This is the reason Rio is an industrial powerhouse, accounting for 5% of, and they've written if, Brazil's total GDP. Okay, so this candidate has written the first sentence is just an opening one, which is okay. It's not doing much, but that's fine. Unemployment rates are extremely high. That's good information. Would be even better if there was some statistic attached with it, which means many are looking for work and need money. Okay, so he's developed that point. Many industries take advantage of this, using cheap labor to become more profitable as a business. So expanding it further, but it would have been nice if a specific industry was referenced here. Rio has many thriving industries such as manufacturing, retail, and banking. It's a correct point to make, but in this context, it's something more needs to be said about it. So the candidate needs to say Okay, this is creating opportunities such as X or Y, or it's creating challenges such as X or Y. This is the reason Rio is an industrial powerhouse, accounting for 5% of Brazil's total GDP. So this paragraph has some really good information in it, but could be improved further with specific examples or percentages, facts on the ground, but developing it and talking about what the opportunity is that's being created or what the challenge is that's being uh, denied within the city itself. Okay, next one. A challenge for the people in the inadequate is the inadequate healthcare within favelas of Rio. Due to the poor sanitation and hygiene levels in favelas, there are many outbreaks of waterborne diseases and pathogens such as cholera. This means that there is high demand for healthcare, but there isn't enough of it. This has led to a relatively high infant mortality rate of 15 per thousand. Okay, so this candidate has started off by talking about the challenges that are created for people that are living there, specifying the inadequacy of the healthcare. It's a good start. Even better might be to say in brackets, lack of access to a GP or lack of access to a medical center or a hospital. So due to poor sanitation and hygiene, very good point to make. Even better would be to say that due to a lack of sewage system, there is poor sanitation and hygiene. There are many outbreaks of waterborne diseases such as cholera. Excellent. That's a really good point to make. But again, would have been better if it referred to the fact that there's no lack of running water in the favela itself. This means that there is a relatively high demand of healthcare, but there isn't enough of it. Okay. Um, Point that's being made here is relevant, but needs some qualification, i.e., refer to the fact that they need, there are 2 million people living here and they need access to a, basic hospital at least. This has led to a relatively high infant mortality rate of 15 per thousand. That's a really, really good point to make. So if a candidate was writing like this would definitely be up in there, the top band areas, because they refer to specific examples of issues, but they've also referred to some data to back up their point of view. Okay, next one. They should improve the lifestyle of those in favelas, as all they need to do is move them to a hotel, and then they can profit off the acres of land taken up by favelas, as they can knock them all down. So your thoughts on this paragraph, just very quickly. What level do you think this candidate would be getting? This is their conclusion for their answer. So this is their conclusion of their answer. That's right. So Canada's not really evaluating at all. It's just stating a generic opinion. And even the opinion is very broad, doesn't show their understanding of the issues. And even if we took this conclusion as something that could be done, it wouldn't be, it'd be so difficult to even do this. And there are lots of moral and ethical issues surrounding suggesting this as a possible solution. Okay, let's move on to the next one. In conclusion, although squat assessments create cheap labour, helping improve Rio's employment rate, it causes just as many losses when you consider the amount of investment that authorities are putting in. An example of this was the pacification of Santa Marta, Rio, an investment in upgrading the quality of housing in that favela. So your thoughts on this conclusion here? Okay, so yeah, there isn't a qualifying the extent to the issues and challenges within the city itself. However, the assumption would be that in the previous paragraphs, this candidate has at the end of each paragraph gone back to the original question. Now, if they've done that, then they've concluded like this is a very separate example that perhaps was given, and would qualify them very strongly for a strong ending to their overall answer, because it covers a lot of uh, issues which are totally relevant to this question. Because it's talking about the fact that Scottish assessments do provide opportunities, i.e., cheap labour, and they do improve the employment rate for the city itself, but the amount of money that potentially is being spent by the authorities could be a lot greater than the benefits that are being provided by the people that are moving there. And also is talking about the fact that the challenges of crime or controlling crime through pacification is creating lots of issues in terms of the amount of money being spent, as well as upgrading the housing is a long-term project and potentially could create greater economic risk moving forward. Now, of course, this is very well summarized. However, the candidate, if they wrote like this in the exam, would be actually very, very impressive. Okay, so key thing to do here, guys, is to make sure that you are carefully considering the throughout your question. Make sure that you are carefully reviewing as you're writing, as you're going along. Now, an issue which is raised often by students is you're in the exam and you're not sure how you're going to do that. Okay, so the key thing is it may sound a bit strange, but if you spend at least 30 seconds before you start writing the answer, you highlight the key points that you're going to make. then you come back to it, okay? By spending that 30 seconds, you're just allowing your mind to be able to remember all the bits of information and not having to then keep it in your memory as you're writing it, as you're writing your answers as you're going along. Okay. Now, this is very, very important because the uh, the issues the issue comes when candidates just write from the top of their head, and what often happens is the first paragraph, which is about half a page, tends to be just generic information that they write, instead of well qualified ideas. So my suggestion would be A, do that. And second thing would be when you've written your first paragraph down, just very quickly glance over it. And at the end of that, evaluation question paragraph, if you haven't included a sentence going back to the original question saying to a large extent or to a small extent, this has created issues or challenges or whatever it might be, then do that. Okay. And then you can do the same thing for the second paragraph, because at least when you've concluded that paragraph, you'll know that you'll need to come up with a different example or opposite viewpoint for that question. Now, the key thing here is that you don't just you don't just listen to this presentation and review it. The most important thing is that you go away and you actually reflect on this by actually doing the exam question itself. There'll be plenty more exam questions for you to do, but hopefully this has given you some idea of how to structure a 9-mark question. And if you're not sure how to structure one, then you can always come back to this video and watch it through again to get some ideas of what other people are writing and what you need to do as well. Remember, by practicing to write your answers, you're going to be much better off. Don't spend time making cue cards and revision notes. Focus on just doing exam questions, even if it means you've got your textbook open and you're writing out a really good answer using that. That is going to be much more beneficial for you in the long run, and you will learn at the same time as well as learn how to structure really, really good answers. Right, so I will be back online in the next couple of days with another exam question for us to do. If you have any specific requests for any question that you'd like to cover or topic that you'd like to do, then please do let me know. And you can leave a comment in the video at the end, in the comment section. And I'll see you on the next video. Have a really good day, everyone. Take care.